we're nice and refreshed after the weekend. We've survived the first week of phase one. I think everyone's easy into it. There is a little bit more traffic on the road, so we want to be mindful of that. There was a jam this morning.
Wow, a traffic jam.
An actual traffic jam.
Actual traffic jam.
Blew my mind.
It's been quite interesting just to see how people have been getting back into working life and just to see how people have been transitioning, going back to school as well. You see a lot of photos of all the school kids at the bus stops and crowding, and then obviously we have the cases that have been spiking here and there and everyone's going, oh my goodness me. But you know what? I think the important thing is not to panic. We're doing okay. We're managing things as best we can, but we just have to really stay mindful about how we're interacting with other people and not to take liberties with the relaxed rules.
Exactly. Still want to adhere to everything. Now, we are going to chat a little bit more about mental health today, but before we get to that, we always want to make sure that you can get a little something out of Kickback as well. So we've got a giveaway. Again, we are giving away Saki masks. All you need to do is like and share the Get Active TV Facebook page, share Kickback onto your page, and drop us a comment. I want to see a picture of you in your mask.
Now, like Barbara mentioned, we are talking a little bit about mental health. The issues have really started to surface over the course of Circuit Breaker. And now that we're getting back to live, I think it's really important that we continue the conversation. So joining us today is a psychotherapist and one of your really good friends.
That's right. We had her on during the morning show as well. So she's back to talk and address a lot of the questions that I think have been swimming in all our minds when it comes to mental health. Lee Ting, psychotherapist and founder of Healing Wholeness Recovery. Ting, come on, join us on set.
Barbara will scoot over so that we can keep this whole safe distance thing going.
Yes.
Hi, Ting. Welcome back.
Good evening, everyone.
How are you doing?
I am doing well.
You're still here?
I'm doing well, yes.
You haven't left?
I'm still in Singapore, enjoying the phase one of everyone here.
Which is really not that different from...
It's phase 3 in New York, so I almost said phase 3, but no, Singapore's not at phase 3 yet.
But you're still on the US time system, aren't you?
Yes.
Ah.
Yes, very much so. Still working in the US time zone, doing teletherapy over phone and video with my patients back in Buffalo.
Awesome. Now, just in case people don't know you already, tell us a little bit about the work that you do in the US or the kind of patients or what do people come to you for?
Yes, so I'm a therapist. I'm in the art of healing. I help people with mental health issues, substance abuse, addictions. I see individuals, I see families, teenagers, children, adults, and we work through anything and everything that they want to work through, including how to make friends and keep friends, how to resolve relationship issues, how to resolve family conflict.
Wow.
And I also have a specialty in post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's a very long list of things that you cover. Obviously, with Circuit Breaker ending, lockdowns all over the world, there have been a rise in various sorts of trends of issues that are surfacing, not just that we've seen in the past, but sort of new ones or ones that have become more prevalent. I mean, I think if you read the newspapers, you'll hear about a rise in domestic abuse, you'll hear about an increase in suicide cases around the world as well. What have you seen from your professional position to be sort of trends that have been on the increase?
Yeah. So thankfully, I haven't lost any of my patients to anything like that. I've heard of patients losing family members to COVID. So my heart goes out to all of them this season. But what trends I'm noticing is being busier than ever at work right now is people are losing the defense mechanisms that they once possessed. They no longer have their workaholism. They no longer have going out with friends all the time. We no longer have distractions that we used to have 24/7 outside of the house to help us just kind of avoid some thoughts and feelings that we throw into the back burner.
Wow. So when it comes to seeing a therapist and talking about mental health, it has improved over the last few years, but there is still a lot of myths around it. Maybe you can help us just break up some of these myths. What are the things that are not true when it comes to seeing a therapist?
Yep. Some of the things that are not true that we, especially in our culture and our society here in Singapore, in Asia, just with less mental health therapists having popularity among citizens, we we need to break the myth that your thoughts and your emotions don't matter and are not connected to your physical health. They're all connected, your brain and your body. And if you would just take 30 minutes out of your day to Google what my parasympathetic nervous system does for me, instead of observing trends in market analysis or your financial investments, you will learn so much about why and how your brain functions and why it matters to listen to how you're feeling and to listen to what you're thinking about.
Okay, break this down for me real quick. Parasympathetic?
Parasympathetic what?
Yeah, parasympathetic who now?
Yes. So your parasympathetic nervous system is your fight, flight, or freeze response, and it happens when we're not feeling great. So when our physical health is not good, it affects our mental health. And when our mental health is not good, it absolutely affects our physical health. We start to report anger, like increased anger management, increased heart racing, insomnia, restlessness, hopelessness, lack of motivation. And then that kind of puts us on the edge. We start snapping more easily. We start avoiding staying in bed all day. And sometimes people are just talking to us and we're just like in a little bit of a shell-shocked response because our body is going into a state where it feels like it needs to preserve itself because it's not feeling great.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you so much. So before we go for a break and invite our next guest on, the culture in Singapore and obviously the culture in the US is very different when it comes to seeing a therapist, having a therapist. It's almost like in the US, if you don't have a therapist, you haven't got your life together yet. And
you're not woke.
You're not,
That's true.
You're not woke.
You're not crushing it.
So you have your own therapist. And what being a therapist and also seeing a therapist, what's that like?
Yeah. So as part of my postgraduate training, they didn't mandate us aspiring clinicians to actually see somebody. But I thought, hey, if I'm going to be working in patients in such an intimate art of healing, I need to experience what it's like to sit in that chair, sit on that couch. So I looked up somebody, shout out to Dr. Atkinson, who's the best. He's had 40 over years of experience back in Western New York. And I even discovered things that I thought I had worked through, but I had not. And seeing him just helps me acknowledge my blind spots, right? Like when we're driving or we're writing, we have to check left and right. And that's kind of what a therapist does for you, especially when I'm in that field, because I don't want to be presumptuous. I don't want to be obnoxious. I don't want to be culturally insensitive. So seeing my own therapist has helped me really check my blinders, and I don't know what I don't know. So it's great to have somebody else to be objective with that and take care of me.
Check yourself.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely incredible. We'll touch on that a little bit more later on after the break. We are going to go off for a short break. When we return, though, we're bringing on Faz Gaffer-Marsh, who's going to join us. She is the founder of My Safe Sphere, and that's all coming up your way in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. This is Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. with Kelly and Barbara. Barbara popping off for safe distancing measures whilst we bring on Faz Ghaffar-Marsh, who is the founder of My Safe Sphere, to join us in the conversation. Ting is still here joining us to share a little bit more. But before we get into the full conversation with both of you, Faz, let's talk a little bit about My Safe Sphere. What exactly is it?
Okay, well, it transpired because after my father passed away and I was looking for a therapist, but I found it too expensive and too intimidating. And then I started writing about my grief on social media, and then I realized that there's a whole community of people who are dealing with mental health issues that don't know where to go. So what My Safe Sphere, the idea of My Safe Sphere came about is because I wanted to start a community that acts as a first step. So people come together for a group therapy session or grief circle or healing circle, however you want to call it. And you're in a safe sphere. You know, you can talk about however you feel or what you're going through. And until you're going through that particular mental health issue, you never know what it's like, right? You can empathize with somebody who's lost a parent, but you never really know what it's like.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important, sort of, when you watch TV, you will see sort of American culture very openly discuss therapy. I mean, I think I'm watching this new show, My Bad, I can't even remember what it was now, but it basically starts around a whole grief circle. And this concept of a grief circle or a grief meeting is very, very popular, very common in American culture. I wouldn't even say that it's that popular in the UK or anywhere else, but in America it's very, very openly discussed. But here you just don't get that same sort of community, do you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my father had to go through palliative care at SGH, and one of the things that I talked to the doctor about is how, like, grief is such a personal thing, and yet it's so unifying. So that's why grief circles work, right? You know, you go through similar emotions. You know, your relationships with the person you lost may not exactly be the same as the next person next to you, but the emotions, all these pent-up feelings, because you have all this love and there's nowhere to go. Yeah, that's what grief is, right?
Yeah, I think especially so when you're dealing with a parent.
Yeah.
Right? So then let's just talk about that stigma then around therapy here in Singapore. I mean, you've obviously had to create your own community because therapy isn't seen as something that's as accessible from a therapist's point of view then, and to be working in America and then to come here, how different is it?
So I have spoken to people in the field here. I've spoken to people in the field here, and it varies. There are some counseling centers that do sliding scale based on your income bracket, and there are some private practitioners who are charging exorbitant amounts of money. But the main issue that pains me to realize is that insurance companies in Singapore do not cover mental health. Or rather, employers don't want to up the cost of insurance coverage for employees to seek behavioral health or mental health therapy. So many people have to pay out of pocket, and when you're paying out of pocket, you have to think about expenses, right? Singapore is the most expensive city in the world to live in right now. So what are our priorities? Making the dough, feeding the family, aspiring to feed a family instead of maybe I have to take care of myself so that my ship doesn't sink. Like when we're on a plane and the plane's going down, they tell you, put on your life jacket before you put it on for your child or someone else. So you do a better job rather than both of you accidentally go down together.
That's a really good point. And Faz, you brought up just now the fact that therapy just seemed really expensive when you were looking into options, right? So what do you think is the role of institutions, organizations in making therapy more accessible to people?
I think there's a few ways. I feel like since I started My Safe Sphere, I've spoken to quite a few therapists and organizations like the James Cook University. They actually offer therapy sessions that are very affordable, like $25 to $40, right? Because their students actually offer the therapy sessions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, especially now with COVID, lots of therapists are offering pro bono teleconferencing sessions. And there's so much to be said about the mental health sphere and all the stigma that goes around you know, just admitting that you have you have an issue and you need help.
I mean, I personally suffered my first anxiety attack in the midst of circuit breaker, and for me, because I was aware, I knew that I was going through an anxiety attack, even though I'd never had one before. But I can imagine that for someone who has never experienced those kind of symptoms, like I would have thought that I had a punctured lung, or maybe I was having a heart attack, because I just felt like middle of the night, I have no clue what to do. Should I be calling an ambulance or whatever?
Yeah.
It's a scary thing. So for yourself, Faz, people reaching out to you, have you seen differences in trends or an increase? What have you noticed?
You know, when I initially started it, we specifically talked about grief. So, you know, people would write and say that, you know, I've been trying to deal with my grief for the past 25 years, and thank you for putting into words.
Oh, wow, 25 years.
And then now, you know, I've actually gotten like, I'm sorry to say this, but during circuit breaker, I found that there are more, like you mentioned, abuse cases, and 2 people have actually reached out to me asking for avenues for help for domestic abuse. And the great thing is they realize that they do need help.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the first step, right? To admitting it.
Yeah. Well, it varies based on cases. Safety is always a priority. That's how I was trained as a clinician. So in the case of domestic violence, the first option is where can we get you out of for your environment. But many shelters are closed.
During lockdown, what are you going to do? Like, it's not like you can suddenly just say, yeah, I'm checking out, I'm going to go live with someone else. You can't even go and bunk in with a friend.
And even making a call, like, you know, if you are a victim, how are you going to make a call?
Yeah,
you know,
right.
you're in a constrained space.
Yeah, you're so afraid. It has gone up. I think not just in the United States, but in Singapore as well. Yeah, so they have to reach out. They have to call the authorities. But sometimes it's sending a text, an SOS, through a friend, family.
There are sort of avenues to do this, but I think sometimes people just don't know. But it's not just the adults that are suffering, the children are suffering as well. I think we're going to see an increase in sort of like the teenagers. I mean, I've even seen it in Sienna.
Yeah.
You know, such a young child thrives amongst the social interaction at school.
Yeah.
And to suddenly take that away from our young children, from the youth of today, I foresee that we're going to have problems with social interaction, with just problems dealing with people. That EQ sort of level is not going to be the same because they've spent several months away from their friends now. Are you noticing this with baby Jackson?
So he's a very sociable child, and the past week he's been going to school, and whenever I pick him up, he would cry because he would think that he's never going to see his friends again. Yeah, so I'm like, no, you're gonna keep seeing them, but he doesn't know, right? He's 2.5, so how are you gonna tell him? Like, because he understands that there's a virus, and that's why he hasn't been able to go to school for the past 2 months. And so he's like, but there's virus, Mama. So can I go to school tomorrow?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you think about it. I mean, roughly, I was trying to do the math in my head, right? Isn't it like 4% of their life has been in lockdown?
Exactly, yeah.
Right? I mean, as a 2-year-old, 4% of your life is just like gone like that. So that plays a huge role. Do you think you're as a clinician, are you going to see a trend, do you think, of teenagers maybe perhaps? I mean, there has been a case in Singapore of a young lad who recently jumped on the first day of phase 1 just because he wasn't able to deal with trying to go back to normal life, which is really sad.
Yeah, it's a much deeper issue because I would like to find out what that environment at home was as well. I think when people are at the wit's end and on the ledge, I've had to do a lot of crisis therapy as well to coach people one step down at a time. The environment plays a larger part. And the psychoeducation is so important, not just to our children, because really a lot of children and teenagers get sent to me, but who do I really need to work with? The entire family unit. I need to work with the parents. The parents need to coach. There needs to be a lot of play therapy, art therapy, creative body work, so that there's at least a little bit of normalcy, because they are truly lacking stimulation, and stimulation is exactly how children develop their brains. So I'm also curious to see what researchers are going to churn out in a couple months in terms of how COVID has really affected the younger developmental stages and their intelligence or emotional quotient with their environments.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting sort of transition back to normal life as we know, but we know that there is no really going back to the way things were. Okay, Faz, we're going to keep you on and we're going to be going through some breathing exercises and how you can, from the comfort of your home, start trying to help. But Ting, just before we let you go, what would be some of the coping strategies that people could do right now from a therapist's point of view to help them deal with however they're feeling?
Yes. So try and talk to someone if you can. All right. Sometimes people come to me because they tell me, I can't talk to my friends or my family very much anymore. It's either because I don't want to hear what they have to say, or they're just not saying anything that really is helping me feel comforted. If that is not an option, if seeking someone out is not an option, then talk to yourself. Talk to that thought, talk to that emotion, talk to your fear. It's a part of you. And when you collectively create the entire body and let it be as one, let it be a whole, they function together, right? So the healthy adult parts of you will help the fearful child that might still come out every now and then. So talk to it, see where it comes from, let it flow.
Ting, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so we'll be talking to ourselves a little bit more, as if we weren't talking to ourselves enough. I think one of the COVID memes that was going around is like, it's okay to talk to your plants, but you should seek a therapist's help if the plants start talking back to you. And on that note, we're going to go for a short break. Stay with us here on Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. Barbara coming back on. We'll be teaching you how to do some breathing exercises to help calm you and center you in this time of disorder. Don't go away.
Step right up, draw the next cut. You're one of the pack, we're animals, so get along with everybody else. Is this ship sinking? I've been thinking. Always sinking. I've been thinking. Been a little time to get along. Wake up call, throw the next up. Be one of a kind, original. Don't be another sign of the times. Fight. Wanna know the secret? We get on. Wanna know the secret? We get on. Try to find the feeling we belong. It's all for one and all for fun.
Hello everyone, welcome to a Kickback with Kelly and Barbara. I'm back on set. You guys had a really, really good chat.
Yeah, I think just sort of wrapping it up just then, Ting mentioned that we could look inside ourselves, start talking to ourselves as a way of basic coping strategies.
More than usual?
More than usual, more than usual, especially for yourself.
I was like, every day when I get ready, I'm like, just have a chat with myself, see how I'm doing.
Yeah, well, we decided to get someone who's maybe a little more acquainted with her inner self. So we're going to get Faz to actually lead us through some of the things that she does when she feels like she's losing control. So Faz, like, what do you do?
A few things, right? You know, I think for anybody who believes in prayer, I think prayer is important. And getting outside, the sun, vitamin D is always great, and working out. And of course, you can always do breathing exercises as well.
Okay.
I like to use my Apple Watch for breathing exercises. I'm sure there are a lot of other trackers that can do that as well. But there's something called box breathing that one of my counselors taught me when I was actually pregnant and very anxious.
Oh, yeah. Pregnancy will do that to you. Okay, so what does box breathing entail?
So I'm sure you've done this in yoga. You basically take a deep breath and say, okay, we can do it together. Okay, we take a deep breath for 3 seconds. We hold it in for 3 seconds and we breathe out for 3 seconds. Ready? Okay, breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3. And then now 4 seconds. Okay, breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you go on 5 seconds.
How? I guess as long as your breath, you can hold your breath.
Yeah, and basically I go up to 8 seconds and then you go down all the way, and then after that you'll feel if you have a tracker, you'll feel a lot calmer. And generally, you can do this in bed. I like to do it when I drop Jackson off at school and just go for a walk and just,
That's awesome. It's interesting because it's very similar to the kind of breathing that I do before I go to sleep.
Okay.
So there is also a chance that if I do box breathing, I might fall asleep.
Which is great.
Anything else that you have in your arsenal?
Well, when my father passed away, I always got anxiety attacks in the middle of the night. So this coping strategy that my counselor taught me. So it is basically to take your mind away from the fight or flight mode that your body is in. So you focus on an object in front of you, I don't know whatever it is, a vase, something, anything, and then you describe it. So it's about taking your mind off.
So you are talking to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Awesome. Okay, so by talking to yourself, I guess you talk yourself out of that state of mind.
So it takes your mind off whatever you're thinking, whatever that's stressing you out, into that, to Barbara, who we're talking about today, we're describing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Describe me. Describe me like one of your French guys.
maybe we'll just stop that right there, Faz. Thank you so much for sharing those coping strategies. If you need a little bit of assistance, you know that you can always reach out to My Safe Sphere. You can also reach out to Ting as well. And remember, whatever it is, you are not alone. There are always people who are willing to listen. Hey, drop us a DM. We will listen to you as well.
Oh, for sure.
Wednesday, we've got a great show coming up, haven't we?
Wednesday, it's going to be all about the tunes. We've got Babe, Joey Tan, and the founder of Love Action Project, Joe Tan, both of them in studio with us to talk about...
That's not going to be confusing at all.
Yeah, I know. When we line them up, we have Joey Tan and Joe Tan, and no, they are not related. Don't forget to also drop us a comment with a picture of you in your mask in order for a chance to walk away with your very own Saki mask.
From Faz, Barbara, and myself, we are signing off for today. Remember to join us again on Wednesday for Kickback with Kelly and Barbara.